President Trump is still liable for everything he did while he was in office as an ordinary citizen. Unless the statute of limitations is run, still liable for everything he did while he's in office. Didn't get away with anything yet. We have a criminal justice system in this country. We have civil litigation. And former presidents are not immune from being accountable by either one.
That was Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell delivering those remarks after Donald Trump was acquitted in his second impeachment trial. But with the Supreme Court's decision on presidential immunity yesterday, it is not clear if McConnell's argument was entirely accurate. Our legal experts are standing by to go over what this all means now. Also ahead, we're following the continued fallout surrounding President Biden's debate performance and new internal polling his team is now circulating. Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe. It is Tuesday, July 2nd. Along with Willie and me, we have managing editor at The Bulwark, Sam Stein, former litigator and MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin, former U.S. attorney and MSNBC contributor Chuck Rosenberg, and Willie, a perfect group for our top story this morning.
Yeah, a lot to sift through and some different views of where this all shakes out. The landmark decision yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court granted former President Donald Trump partial immunity from criminal prosecution for some of the actions he took while in office. NBC News senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett has details.
A monumental win at the Supreme Court for former President Trump, the conservative majority finding the presumptive GOP nominee must receive sweeping immunity for any official acts taken during his presidency. The 6-3 ruling a defeat for special counsel Jack Smith, with the court bulldozing through the charges against Mr. Trump for his alleged criminal efforts to stay in power, making the completion of any trial before November virtually impossible.
Today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what the president can do.
Chief Justice John Roberts laying out a new sliding scale of what can be prosecuted, saying a president may not be prosecuted for exercising his core constitutional powers, that he has immunity from prosecution for all his official acts, but that a president has no immunity for private, unofficial acts, while cautioning the president is not above the law. A federal grand jury indicted the former president for orchestrating a conspiracy to retake the White House. Prosecutors alleging he leaned on his DOJ, VP, and state officials to help him reverse the election results, mobilizing meetings of fake electors. It all culminating in the violent attack on the Capitol on January 6. Mr. Trump has pleaded not guilty to all charges and argued without immunity, every president could be prosecuted by political opponents.
If you don't have immunity, you're not going to do anything. You're going to become a ceremonial president. You're not going to take any of the risks.
The majority agreeing the commander-in-chief must be able to carry out his constitutional duties without risk of political prosecution. Writing, without immunity, such types of prosecutions of ex-presidents could quickly become routine, and that would weaken the presidency, which is exactly what the framers intended to avoid. The special counsel had pushed to get the case to trial before November.
My office will seek a speedy trial.
The ruling now dramatically chipping away at parts of Smith's case. The justices finding Mr. Trump's urging the then Attorney General to investigate voter fraud now absolutely immune from prosecution. What remains in the indictment, including his pressure on his former VP,
Mike Pence is going to have to come through for us,
are now entitled to a presumption of immunity. The liberal justices with a blistering pushback. Justice Sotomayor writing, when a president uses his official powers in any way, under the majority's reasoning, he will now be insulated from criminal prosecution. Orders the Navy SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival, immune. Organizes a military coup to hold on to power, immune. Takes a bribe in exchange for a pardon, immune. Even if these nightmare scenarios never play out, the damage has been done.
NBC's Laura Jarrett reporting for us there. So, Chuck, I'll start with you. The reaction to this as it came down yesterday ranged somewhere from democracy is dead, we now have kings instead of presidents, to it's a little bit murky. And the murkiness comes in that definition of official acts by a president versus personal acts by a president. Who gets to define that? How you define that? What's your take?
And once again, Willie, I find myself in the rather lonely middle. So I think it is logical that some acts are immune. The core constitutional responsibilities of any president, put Mr. Trump aside, ought to be immune from prosecution. Purely private acts ought not be immune. And so the hard part, again, is in the middle, right? What is and what is not an official act? I think we have to avoid the following construction. I don't like Mr. Trump. This opinion is good for Mr. Trump. Therefore, we are on the brink of a constitutional apocalypse. I don't believe that's true. But part of Jack Smith's case is now gone, and he's going to have to fight for the rest. His road to prosecution is longer and bumpier and more narrow. All of those things are true, and I disagree with certain particulars in the case. But in the main, Willie, it makes sense to me that there is immunity in some cases and no immunity in others. And to your point, we have to figure out the rest.
So, Lisa, let's take the federal election interference case. Judge Tanya Chutkan, U.S. District Judge, a federal judge now. It is on her, according to the Supreme Court, to decide which of these acts, which of this evidence constitute official conduct and which constitute personal conduct. If you are Judge Chutkan this morning, you're feeling how about that assignment?
You're feeling very despondent about that assignment because you've just been given 119 pages that lays down some very broad principles without a whole lot of guidance. And you've been told that one of the things you can't consider in determining what's official versus personal is motive or purpose. And that was a really big deal at the oral argument here. Chief Justice Roberts giving the example of what if a president, for example, is charged with bribery? The act of bribery itself is a personal act, accepting the money. But let's say a president is bribed for appointing someone to an ambassadorship. That's an official act. And he was trying to untangle an oral argument. Is that a official act? Is that a personal act? How should we consider it? Well, now we know the majority is saying in a situation like that, the motive or the purpose for which someone does something that arguably could be official can't be considered in untangling what's personal or official. That will mean that a lot of what we consider to be unofficial actions, if taken at the White House, if done with the cooperation, for example, of people at the Department of Justice or White House counsel's office or other aides, that might fall on the line of official because her hands have been tied. She can't consider what Trump's ultimate aim was in making that determination.
So as we heard in Laura's report, President Biden weighed in on the Supreme Court's immunity ruling. In brief remarks from the White House yesterday, the president warned the High Court's decision will allow Donald Trump to do whatever he wants should he be reelected. Biden also criticized the ruling for delaying Trump's federal election interference case, calling it a disservice to voters.
For all practical purposes, today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what a president can do. This is a fundamentally new principle, and it's a dangerous precedent because the power of the office will no longer be constrained by the law, even including the Supreme Court of the United States. The only limits will be self-imposed by the president alone. The American people must decide if they want to entrust the president once again, the presidency, to Donald Trump, now knowing he'll be even more emboldened to do whatever he pleases whenever he wants to do it. Now the man who sent that mob to the U.S. Capitol is facing potential criminal conviction for what happened that day. And the American people deserve to have an answer in the courts before the upcoming election. The public has a right to know the answer about what happened on January 6th before they are asked to vote again this year. Now, because of today's decision, that is highly, highly unlikely. It's a terrible disservice to the people of this nation.
Chuck Rosenberg, I'm curious. I'd love to hear your response to what the president had to say. And also, I'm curious if you thought this 119-page decision, if you thought that the points they made, what they came to was extremely complicated and fraught and time-consuming and difficult to get to. I'm wondering if you have any question about the timing of this on the very last day, basically giving Donald Trump a win because of the timing. It seems to me that a case like this, but who am I, should be dealt with first. And Are the deductions that they made so complicated that it took this long, in your estimate?
Yeah, Mika, lots of good questions. So Justice Jackson, I think, properly criticized the majority opinion for its indeterminate standards. And I think that's right. As Lisa Rubin had remarked earlier, it's a bit of a muddle, and it's unclear precisely how she proceeds from here, except that it's going to take a long time. I think Mr. Biden is quite right. There is no chance virtually, for this to be tried before the election. That said, right, sort of like, forgive this simple analogy. Remember in The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy always had the power to get back to Kansas. All she had to do was click her heels 3 times. We always had the power as a nation to remove Mr. Trump from office and make sure he was never president again. The Senate completely abdicated its responsibility there. And instead, as Mr. McConnell described, threw this into the courts of the United States, where we thought we were going to get some sort of perfect solution. The courts of the United States are very good at what they do, but they are not perfect. They move slowly. They're designed to move slowly. And the notion that the Supreme Court would have expedited this case simply because a bunch of us wanted it to be heard expeditiously, I think, was a bit of a fool's errand. So I'm not surprised by any of this. These things take a long time. And if we're looking to the courts for a perfect solution, you're frankly not going to get one, Mika. That is not the place to go for a perfect solution. Mr. Trump is a unique and uniquely vile character. And the notion that we can fill in all of the gaps in our laws to account for an actor like him, I think, is foolhardy. And this illustrates, right, the difficulty of holding a man like Mr. Trump accountable in the courts of law. It's really hard to do. It's almost impossible when he's a former president, and this opinion makes that clear.
So, Lisa, in the long run, if Donald Trump is reelected, this gives him the immunity he was seeking. In the short term, in this presidential campaign, it effectively pushes everything past Election Day. You could ask questions even about the Georgia case. Was the call to Brad Raffensperger, the infamous call in early January of 2021, was that an official act? Was he just checking on the results in Georgia? Was he asking for a recount? I mean, you see my point. His team can argue every detail of every case. It seems, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no chance that any of these are taken up or go to trial anyway before Election Day.
Absolutely not. And Willie, one of the reasons that it doesn't is because it will take 32 days just before Judge Chutkan even gets the case back. That's because under Supreme Court rules, they have 32 days to issue the judgment back to the lower court unless somebody asks for it. The other thing is Judge Chutkan has to resolve what is in and out of the case before anything can proceed further. And what's in and out of the case has to go through the appeals process again before those pretrial proceedings can continue, because immunity isn't just immunity from liability, it's immunity from the whole thing, right? If you're immune from prosecution, you shouldn't have to go through the process to begin with. So I think there is no chance we see any trial before the election. And the case is going to disappear if Donald Trump is reelected. He will direct the Department of Justice to dismiss the case. He will get rid of the special counsel somehow. We should suffer no illusions that this case continues through the courts if Donald Trump is reelected.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn. MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.